All right.
All right, so tonight we're here before our STEAM event to talk about SOLs, which you might hear from teachers or your kiddos like, oh, I'm taking the SOLs in a couple weeks. SOL stands for Standards of Learning. And so in the state of Virginia, each grade level has a bunch of different standards that they must teach in all of the different content areas. So that test at the end is an assessment of those standards that they're learning throughout the year. So we all say SOL for short. So Virginia is changing the way that schools gain accreditation. So this is the new framework that the state of Virginia has come up with. And there's a different framework for middle school and high school. Obviously, I'm just going to focus on the elementary this evening. So all schools are given a score out of 100 points, obviously 100 being the highest that we can get. What we're looking for is mastery in English, language arts, math, and then our fifth graders also take a science test at the end of the year. So if they master that test or pass it, and we'll go over passing scores here in a moment, that counts for 65% of our score. Growth is a 25% chunk, and that is kiddos who were taking an SOL last year and then again this year. So a lot of our students are new to Virginia. They might not have an SOL, so their scores count for us just a little bit differently. That 10% is called readiness, and readiness is actually chronic absenteeism. So we're looking for 18 or fewer days that students are absent throughout the year. And that doesn't matter if it's excused or unexcused. So the flu and COVID and all of the other illnesses that went around this winter are definitely hurting us in that chronic absenteeism area. Even though it's legitimate illness, we're still looking for ways to kind of recoup those absences. So that's 10%. So on our next one here, so you're looking, I told you it's out of 100% or 100 points. And this is how the state's gonna look at us and grade us. So if you're at 90 points or more, you're a distinguished school. 80 to 89 is on track. And then off track, and these are the schools that the state's going to keep a bit closer eye on. If you're below 79 and then below 65, you're in need of really intensive support. So that's the way that they're going to categorize all the schools in Virginia. And again, here's that breakdown of elementary, middle, and high. Like I said, for growth, we're looking at our English language arts and our math. And we do have a very small percentage of students who are learning English as a second language here at Fort Belvoir. So those students will count for, they take a, it's called a WIDA test, which is assessing their acquisition of the English language and reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So that goes into our growth score as well. Mastery is all of those SOLs. And then that readiness again at the bottom. This year, it's all chronic absenteeism. Next year, they're going to add some other components as well. So this is a breakdown of taking last year's data, where Fort Belvoir Upper, we kind of fall on that score of out of 100. And actually, we're looking pretty good. We would score an 84.01, which is in that on track category. So that means that we're doing exactly what we need to do when we get kiddos in, making sure that they are growing every year, but then also mastering those standards in each grade level and content area. So to break it down, for reading and math mastery, we got 20.42 points in reading, 19.38 in math, and then science is out of 10 points, we got 9.72. When we're looking at growth, we got 13.36 in reading and 12.43 in math. And then that chronic absenteeism, the max points you can get is 10, and we got 8.7 last year. So I anticipate that our scores hopefully will be higher than last year, but we're looking to be at least on track. And then that goal, of course, would be to be over 90 to make us a distinguished elementary school. Any questions about what accreditation looks like in Virginia? Okay, I've got some specialists here who are going to talk about what does that look like in the different content areas.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Wakely, the reading specialist here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the reading SOL tests that your kids will take, just go over what it will look like and how you can prepare them. So the best way that we prepare our students at Fort Belvoir for this reading test is really just providing high quality instruction. You guys know that probably know that we have adopted Benchmark Advanced, which is the curriculum we use here. And the students get a 2-hour block for language arts where they learn word study, grammar, vocabulary, language comprehension, and there's also an area for writing. We also have extra reading support through our HIT tutoring. We have a Youth Life Phonics program for the kids who need help still with that decoding and learning how to read. And we use intervention resources and also Lexia to help support our reading. So what your students will see on the test for the reading SOL is they will be exposed to multiple passages with different genres. It's fiction, nonfiction. They'll see some poetry and some functional text, which is probably like flyers, websites, things like that. They will get about 5 to 6 passages with 40 to 50 questions. They will be asked a variety of questions dealing with main idea, organizational pattern, compare and contrast, inferencing, author's purpose, all the things that teachers are teaching them throughout the year. So they're getting this instruction through their language arts throughout the year. Some examples of what like a question could look like for fiction would be, what is the main idea of paragraph 6? A nonfiction example could be, which would be the best heading for paragraph 2? And this is kind of what they look like on the test. They will probably see some poetry questions. So it would be something along the lines of, go to lines 17 through 20. Who is the speaker in the poem? And then they'll probably have some word analysis samples where they'll get a word and they have to use context clues to figure out the word's meaning, or possibly using dictionary skills to figure out the word meaning. So along with the tier 1 instruction that the teachers are using throughout the year, teachers are also preparing the students for the test by getting them on the platform, which is called TestNav, so they can use the tools and get accustomed to how to take the test. So they've been doing that for a few weeks now. They also are using scrap paper. So the reading test will be online and they have to use the tools online like the highlighting and things like that. So what we're telling the students to do is to use scrap paper to kind of jot down their notes and their thoughts as they're reading a passage. I know this is tricky for kids to read something on a screen, but we're trying to get them used to now. Using scrap paper to kind of slow them down, take some notes, really try to understand what the question is asking.
Hey everyone, my name is Natalie McMonagle. I'm the instructional coach here and really focus on math here at Fort Belvoir. So just like Katie was saying, the best way that we can prepare the kiddos for the SOL at the end of the year is by making sure they've got great quality tier 1 instruction. And in that tier 1 instruction, they've got an hour and a half of a math block every day. 30 minutes of that is individualized intervention time. We've got some kids that are on an IEP, and that's when they're going to their special education teacher's room. We've got students that receive tutoring. HIT tutoring is also when that would happen at that 30 minutes, and any students who are not getting pulled out receive intervention with their teacher. And right then they're filling any gaps that might have been made from maybe a move or gaps that have been made in prior grades or maybe review for a previous unit test. The rest of that hour and a half is the hour of the math workshop model, where if you can see this pie chart here, the way that we try to structure our math workshop model is about half of the math workshop itself is centered around student-centered engagement, so that students working together, working in groups, or working by themselves. You can see that the mathematics community builder and goal setting is only about 25% of the lesson. That's very intentional. That's for us to give a 10 to 15 minute mini lesson to introduce it to our kids so that they don't lose their capacity to listen and to work, and then we get to focus most of the math time on doing the math. And then the last 25% is a reflection and lesson closure. On the SOL test itself, there will be a mixture of fair number problems where that's just the traditional number plus number equals number, number times number equals number. There's a lot of model questions, which I'll be able to show you in some pictures in the next few slides. Some of it's vocabulary, a lot of the vocabulary stems from geometry. And then 44% of the test is word problems, and students in grades 4 through 6 do have a calculator on those word problem questions. So when the question is assessing the student's knowledge of computation. They do not get a calculator, but for any other question that's not assessing, do they understand how to add this or multiply this? Maybe it's understanding, can you find the perimeter, can you find the area? They're really trying to see if the student knows how to find the area and perimeter, not seeing can you add these numbers for computation, so that's when they allow a calculator. Does that make sense? Here's some examples of a bare number. So the bare number is exactly what I was saying before. It's just numbers. So there it's 4.221 divided by 7. It's a little bit more traditional how maybe you have seen tests when you were growing up. Just the number, and we want a number in the answer. And then here's the vocabulary examples. Which figure appears to be an isosceles triangle? Is an example of a vocabulary question. Here's the model questions that I was talking about before. A lot of the models are with fractions. And when we are teaching our kids in class, we are teaching with models, having kids learn to make the models, decipher from the models. And then on the unit tests that we provide, we try to mock it after the SOL so that students aren't just seeing questions like this for the first time in May. And so I'll read the question in case it's a little hard to see, but it says 2 students are working together to paint a wall. After an hour, one student has painted half the wall, the other student has painted a fifth of the wall. Create a model that shows what fraction of the wall they painted. And with this model right here, you've got the ability to add more parts or fewer parts. And then depending on when you've hit your denominator that you would like, then you start filling in the numerator a different color. And so as you can see, tests have changed a lot since, at least since I was in school. A lot of the tests when I was growing up were just those bare number problems. And now it's really showing the conceptual understanding of math, not just the numbers. Here's another example of shape this picture to represent the number 3 and 4/6. So the students would have to completely shape 3 of those rectangles and then 4/6 of that 4th rectangle. Here's some examples of a word problem. The list shows the weight of vegetables Frank bought. The potatoes weighed 3 7/8 pounds. The green beans weighed 1 1/4 pounds. The peppers weighed 2 1/2 pounds. The total weight of the vegetables Frank bought is blank. And then the students would enter it using a device that looks very similar to what you see on the screen is where they put them. So now just going over what's the purpose of this SOL. So the purpose is that it's federal and state requirement. It's part of the No Child Left Behind bill that got approved in, I think it was 2001. It does show student growth, provides information to teachers and parents about their students. A passing score is anywhere from a 400 to a 499, a 500 to a 600 is pass advanced, and anything below a 400 is not a pass. Now, if students score between a 375 and 399, they have the ability to retake the SOL. So if they scored maybe a 378 on their math SOL, they do have the ability to retake it with parent permission. And so we will be sending home parent request forms asking if your student were to be able to retake the test, would you allow them to do that? Students retake the test about one to 2 weeks after the initial test date because we have to get all the scores in by the end of May. What happens if my child does not pass the SOL? They still go on to the next grade. Nothing happens as far as with your child. It just does start to affect the accreditation of the school. You will be able to see the scores in parent view. And if no parent view scores will be distributed by formula. As far as taking the SOL, how you can help your children understand what it will look like. And obviously we do this in the classroom a lot. But all the testing is done online. It's untimed, so they can take the entire day. They must complete it in that one day. It is computer adaptive, except for the 6th grade science. So that means that a few questions could be below grade level or above grade level, depending on how the student is answering, so that it can give a better idea if that student is getting a below passing rate, above passing rate. They receive scratch paper. And then some accessibility tools that they might have are things like a magnifier, line masking, eliminator tool, highlighter, like Ms. Wakely was talking about before. In math, they do receive a ruler, calculator for some of the questions. And we do practice in our classrooms, just getting our kids used to taking a test on the computer and what tools they have available to them so that they can practice using these tools, so they can use them successfully for the test. These are the dates that we have for our SOL right now. So the reading SOL is going to be on Tuesday, May 13th. The science SOL, which is only for 5th graders, will be on Thursday, May 15th. The math SOL is Tuesday, May 20th. The makeups will be happening anywhere in between those windows. So if your student wasn't at school for the reading SOL on the 13th, they would be making it up anywhere from the 14th, 15th, anytime before that retake area. Once they come back to school, that's when they will make up their SOL. Now retakes is a little bit different. So a makeup is if your child wasn't there to take the test. Once they return, they'll take the test. The retake is again that really small chunk of students that maybe scored from a 375 to a 399. Those students that are able to retake the SOL with parent permission, that will be happening the week of the 27th to the 30th. Any ways that you can help at home? These are the resources that we have available to us. Tutor.com, which is online tutoring and it's no cost to families. We've got TestNav, which is something that we're practicing almost daily in the classroom to get kids used to the tools they have available to them and the types of questions that will be asked. They've got STMath, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you've been around Fairfax County. It's a conceptual device game, mostly games to help kids understand math past just the numbers basis and more to get a conceptual understanding of the math. We've got MyOn for online reading, Lexia, and then reading above bookmarks. I know that Ms. Wakely wanted me to mention too, just for that night before, if you're thinking about my students taking their tests on a Tuesday, what can I do the night before? Just making sure that they get a good night's sleep and in the morning they get a nice full breakfast so that they're not hungry during their SOL. That's really how you guys can help out at home. Do you guys have any questions?
I have to go.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I know we have a super small crowd here, but the video will be posted onto our website if you'd like to review it again. If you have any questions, you can contact the office. One of us will get back in touch with you if questions do come up in the future. I so appreciate you all being here.